My name's Dr. Louise Bright. I'm Director of Research and Business Engagement at the University of South Wales. Before I do some formal introductions, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to introduce our speaker for today, and after she's spoken to us, there'll be plenty of opportunity to ask questions. If you could ask questions using the chat function on Teams, that would be really great. So rather than the hand up, if you just write your question in the chat function, and I'll pose that question then to Emma, our speaker. So throughout the event, it would be really great if you could keep on mute and keep your cameras off so it runs as smoothly as possible. When I ask those questions at the end, if it's your question, feel free to unmute and put your camera on if you do want a bit of a chat with Emma. So use your etiquette, cameras off and mics off for the majority of today. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to be with us this lunchtime for this event. It's hosted by the Wales Women in STEM Network. And what we aim to do really is to kind of expose and address the barriers that face women working in STEM and bring people together who really want to see change in our STEM sector. And who want to see positive working environments where women and girls can really thrive in their STEM careers. As somebody who's been working really hard on our Wales Women in STEM network, I got invited last year to be head of the judges for the first Wales STEM Awards. So it wasn't a women's awards, it was a STEM in Wales award category. Within that big kind of competition, there were 16 separate awards. So you can imagine there were hundreds of entries for the Wales STEM Awards. Within those 16 categories, we then shortlisted nominations and we interviewed everybody who was shortlisted. And there were literally hundreds. And we interviewed over the period, it was 4 very, very full days of interviewing people. There were a few things that struck me during those interviews. The brilliant stuff that goes on in Wales in terms of STEM, how important people are to doing that brilliant stuff. And really what hit me really hard was the diverse sorts of people that are really thriving in STEM careers and how they give so much back to others who are kind of coming behind them in their careers. And there were particularly some brilliant women that, through those interviews that I had, I just wanted to find a way of sharing their inspirational stories with a much broader audience. And that's where this kind of seminar series has come about. I'm super pleased to welcome Dr. Emma Saunders today of Genesis Biosciences. I met Emma twice. Genesis Biosciences was nominated for 2 awards. I think it was Innovation in Science and STEM Environmental Initiative. So we interviewed Emma and a team twice. So I got a really good sense of the exciting things they were doing. But what really kind of spoke to me was Emma in particular in her role as General Manager for Europe, her commitment to the next generation of girls and women coming up the ladder, and how successful Emma has been in her own career. And it seemed to me, well, I don't want to tell Emma's story for her, that her success comes from finding something that she's really passionate about in an organisation that really aligns with her values. So her real talent and strengths can really come to the fore. So without me telling Emma's story instead of her, I want to say thank you to Emma for agreeing to spend time with us today and to welcome her. I'll hand over to you, Emma.
Thank you, Louise. Right, okay, I'm going to try and share a presentation, some slides that I have put together. So just first of all, I'd just like to say thank you. It's a real honour to be invited to speak today. And over the next 30 minutes or so, I definitely know how to talk, so it may go over the 30 minutes. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to provide you with a snapshot of the scientific and personal journey that I have taken in my career. And also, I'd like to give some insight into my current role and the work that we are doing at the award-winning, as Louise explained, biotech company Genesis Biosciences. I'm also really happy and excited to be able to answer any questions at the end, and I'm hoping that we'll still have time to enable people to grab some lunch or some fresh air before having to get back to work, or get back to homeschooling, or for many of us, get back to homeschooling and work simultaneously, which is a very interesting new dynamic that I and many others are getting used to recently. So let me introduce myself. So I'm Dr. Emma Saunders. I'm a biochemist by training, and I manage the UK and European division of the global biosciences company Genesis Biosciences. In my role at Genesis, I'm responsible for overseeing both the technical and the commercial operations of what prior to January 1st was the European business entity, but it's now officially the UK and European business entity. But how did I get here? So science is not really in my genes. Neither of my parents were scientists or technologists, and neither of them studied in higher education. But what they did do was encourage and support me in every endeavour. I was always given the freedom to develop my own passion for something, and from a very young age, my parents nurtured my curiosity in biology and the natural world. They exposed me to as many experiences as possible. We used to have summer holiday trips to London's natural history museums and science museums, days out in nature reserves, zoos and safari parks. We kept a menagerie of pets throughout my childhood. And I loved watching, the Really Wild Show and the David Attenborough programs. But it was really at comprehensive school that my science teacher, Mr. Parsons, ignited an interest and a lifelong love in science and in biology in particular. He was a very engaging young teacher. He brought every lesson to life. And I think it was because of him inspiring me that I chose to study all science A-levels and then pursue a bachelor's degree in science. And I did a degree in genetics with physiology at the University of London. Then after my degree, I came to somewhat of a crossroads. Do I, like so many of my peers, choose to leave science and go to work in the financial district, where I could quickly see off my student debts, or do I continue to be a poor student and follow my heart? It was no surprise to those who know me that my heart won, and I undertook a PhD studentship in biochemistry at the Royal London School of Medicine and Dentistry. And wow, what a different world that was. While I had a project topic, I think it was signal transduction and steroidogenesis in the adrenal gland, and I had a broad scope outlined, it was up to me to define my research strategy and to develop hypotheses, design experiments, generate data or generate no data and start all over again, draw credible conclusions, and then try to relate it all back to the real world. It was really hard work, but it taught me valuable life and professional skills that I still use every day in my current job. A career in STEM really allows you to develop technology solutions for real-world problems and actually see them successfully put to use, and that's what really appealed to me. So after completing my PhD, I decided to leave the world of academic research and follow the path of industry, where I could see the output of my scientific work being applied in the real world. I moved to Cardiff and I took a position as an R&D scientist at a medical devices company that specialised in contract development of lateral flow rapid tests, the same type of tests that are being used at the moment for testing COVID. It was a really rapidly growing business, and we worked as a development partner for some of the world's largest pharmaceutical and biotech companies. And all of them took me on their own journey with them and taught me so much about end-to-end R&D project management. The company was a relatively small company at the time. It isn't now, but it was at the time. And so I was really fortunate because I was able to be immersed in many different elements of the business, from sales and marketing to R&D, quality assurance, manufacturing, regulatory affairs. I think everything really, and I became a jack of all trades. And I think in doing this, I opened up a wider horizon for my future career in STEM. It was from here that I decided to further enhance this diversity in the scientific journey, and I moved away from clinical diagnostics, and I actually joined an industrial biotechnology company as a technical manager responsible for the technical operations of the business. And like my previous company, it was very agile and innovative, and it had a culture where scientists can foster their creativity and be hands-on and instrumental in product development from concept all the way up to commercial launch. I immersed myself at the coalface from the very beginning. I was like a sponge, and I wanted to learn as much as I could to garner an understanding of the science, the laboratory techniques, the products, and the roles that each employee in the team played within the business. And this provided me with a really deep understanding of the science, the technology, the business, and a voice from the laboratory bench all the way to the boardroom. And what I learned from this is that the skills obtained from a scientific discipline and training are actually transferable across many, many different scientific fields, and also in people management and strategic business planning. Starting out in a career in STEM, the world really is your oyster. Now, many women in STEM careers face a difficult challenge when they start a family. And because of the debts of higher education and the relatively modest pay in the scientific sector, many are actually starting families a lot later in life, at stages in their career where they've become experts in their field, and they're providing valuable skills and knowledge equity to a business. Many of them are at stages where they hold middle management or senior management positions. So to retain these incredible assets that these women are, employers really need to be flexible. I have 2 children, born 19 months apart. I must have been crazy. And I'm one of the lucky ones because my employer provided flexibility for me to take 12 months off maternity leave on both children, and then to return part-time when they were preschool age. And there is no doubt at all that it's because of this that I am where I am today. There are so many stories of women having to leave the STEM workforce for long periods in their career to raise children. And it's, I think, one of the reasons that while there are a lot of women going into STEM roles, there are few females in STEM senior leadership positions. However, I do think that modern digital connectivity like we're using today and the work from home revolution, which has occurred due to the COVID crisis, will only serve to endorse flexible working practices in businesses. And actually, it's going to be enabling for many working mothers in STEM roles. Another factor that all hardworking mothers contend with is guilt. We feel guilty when we are working and spending time away from our children. And as conscientious scientists, we feel guilty that we're not able to put the hours we previously could into our work. It's an emotion that, unfortunately, I think just comes with the territory of being a working mother in any discipline. And I don't think there's a cure for it yet, but something that has definitely helped me deal with this is having a passion for the science that I do. Choosing a job that you feel really passionately about, that you can talk with pride to your children about your work, and you can become a role model to them, is so important. So that's certainly enough about me, I think. Time to change direction a little and tell you about the STEM role that I feel so passionately about. So I've worked for Genesis Biosciences now for over 12 years. I can't believe it's actually that long. It's gone by in a flash. It's a privately owned business with manufacturing and fermentation facilities in Georgia, USA, and a technical centre of excellence in Cardiff. And at Genesis, we research and ferment beneficial bacteria that belong to the bacillus family, and we develop safe and natural products for a wide range of industrial and consumer applications. We use the latest genomic techniques to understand the capabilities of the bacteria in the finest detail, and then we combine this with environmentally responsible chemistry to make probiotic products that can replace harmful chemicals in a broad range of cleaning applications. We are a primary producer of bacillus, and following an expansion that we are currently undertaking, we will have the biggest capacity of any bacillus producer worldwide. So why do we work with bacillus? Modern microbiological techniques and genomic advancements have provided us with tools to better characterize our natural resources. And we're now able to explore viable cleaning additives that are derived from nature itself, and these include beneficial bacteria. It's estimated that there are 5 million trillion bacteria populating our planet. They make up 70 to 90% of all living species on Earth. They've steered the evolution of our planet, and they've created the conditions necessary for life. Our whole ecosystem would collapse if bacteria were not present. And using beneficial bacteria is not a new thing. It's something that's well established. The human nutritional probiotic market is worth billions and billions of dollars. And bacillus are nature's own toolbox. They are found in almost every environment in the planet, and they are responsible for recycling nutrients in the environment, meaning that they can degrade dirt and waste in a very rapid and targeted way. Their safety is also very well documented, and they have a very long history of safe use in food production and in industry. And finally, they're really resilient. When there's no waste or dirt for them to degrade, they form quiescent spores, so they go back into a sleeping state. And so they can be formulated into lots of very stable products. So they can be formulated with other cleaning ingredients, with high pHs and low pHs. And they have a very long shelf life. They're very stable. Now, all of the technologies that Genesis develop are based on our Eco-benign foundation. And so what is Eco-benign? An Eco-benign is an ethos. It's the foundation on which all of our work is focused on. And it's about developing products that are safer than the traditional harsh chemical alternatives. And it involves all aspects of our operations, from how we select the raw materials and the ingredients that we use, their biodegradability, making sure that they don't reside in the environment. We look at low impact manufacturing processes. We look at the packaging and how we distribute the products and the partners that we choose to work with for distribution. But why is this so important, especially now? We can't know the long-term effects that chemical compounds are going to have on our planet and health. We're beginning to see some of them, but we certainly don't know all of them. We know that rates of lung disease have increased due to exposure to household chemicals and professional cleaning chemicals. And we know that using biocides profusely and indiscriminately to clean everything and everywhere puts pressure on harmful bacteria to actually become resistant. So I think now more than ever, we need to look for alternative technologies. So we are, as a business, we actually serve many different markets. We sell probiotic concentrates to manufacturers who then use those to formulate a wide range of different cleaning and waste remediation products. We also have our own range of probiotic, environmentally friendly cleaning products that we sell to the professional and also the domestic market. There, we've just started selling some on Amazon. And then we have microbial products that are used to treat more industrial applications, so wastewater treatment in the marine sector and to enhance biogas production. So a really broad range of markets where our technology is used. And in summary, we harness the power of naturally occurring microbes and non-toxic chemistry to do what in the past I think could only really be addressed by using harsh chemicals. So hopefully you can see from this very quick whirlwind tour of what we do as a business, you can see why I feel so passionately about my current role in STEM. So just to draw this talk to a close, I can't really give advice because everybody's circumstances are so different. But if I were to reflect on my own personal journey, I think there are 4 things that have been really instrumental for me. The first is that I followed my passion. You have to feel passionately to succeed in what you're doing. Science is all about thinking outside the box, in breaking new ground, and in challenging the norms. You need passion and you need determination to do this and to persevere when things go awry. I also chose to work with companies that have a clear purpose, whose values are aligned closely with my own. It's important to have pride and conviction in what you are doing and to be able to recognise the benefits that your work will bring on society and on the world. Really importantly, I chose to work for agile and innovative businesses that fostered a platform for creativity and accommodated flexible working practices. And that's something that I continue to do in my role as General Manager at Genesis. Oh, sorry, skipped. And finally, to have someone that can mentor you. I've always had strong mentorship in every role that I've been in that's really helped me, and to also mentor others whenever you get the opportunity. And I think this is so important because as the famous children's rights activist Marion Wright Elderman articulated really well, you cannot be what you cannot see. Thank you for listening.
Emma, thank you ever so much for sharing your personal experiences of being a woman in STEM, and also sharing some of the work that your company is doing, which is fascinating. And I could ask you loads of questions about it. While the audience is warming up in terms of questions, so if you remember, you can use the chat function to ask Emma anything that you'd like. We've got a couple of questions that have come through in advance of the meeting. One of them is around challenges. So what challenges have you got in your work at this point, and how do you deal with them?
Right, that's a really good question. I think there's a couple. So first of all, you know, as you can see from what we do as a business, that it's just having the resource and the bandwidth and the time to actually explore all of the different market opportunities that are available for microbial products and probiotic technologies. You know, it really is it really is something that can be applied in so many areas, in so many industries. And it's just having those resources, I think, is a big challenge for us. Another challenge, which I think is quite significant, is more of an sort of with regards to the industry itself, is actually changing the way that consumers and end users and people think about cleaning, and actually getting people to accept that natural technologies that are based on natural actives and not harsh chemicals are actually efficacious alternatives. There's this thing about, I've heard it so many times, if it's green, it won't clean. Well, we know I can prove that wrong for a start. But I think particularly at the moment with the pandemic, a lot of people are just reaching for the bleach, which is the right thing to do to prevent infection risk. So I think when this is over, it's something that we do need to look at carefully and address. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the challenges, the big challenges that we face at the moment.
Thanks, Emma. Also wondering, you're in a position now in your career where you can really shape what your organisation does to support women in the workforce. So that's a kind of privileged position, but I think we can all do things to kind of encourage our organisations to kind of do stuff. What more do you think organisations can do to really step up and support women in their workforces?
I think one of the main ones, as I said, alluded to in my talk, is about flexible working practices, to allow flexibility, whether that means, different start times so that you can drop the children at school if you've got children. So that's one area. But also, I think encouraging exposure to the next generation of scientists. So allowing people to come and do work experience. We have a program at Genesis where we have pre-lockdown, I should say, because we haven't been able to do it the whole of 2020. We couldn't do it. But previously to that, we would have students, 3 or 4 students coming from colleges, from universities, or from the local comprehensive schools to come and actually do work experience alongside the laboratory scientists and technicians. And I think that was so valuable. I mean, every one of them got so much out of that, and just allowing your organisation to have a scheme that enables that, I think would be really, really enabling for everyone.
I think another question that we often get asked is around imposter syndrome.
That's a good question.
Have you got it, and what do you do? What's the cure?
I don't have a cure for imposter syndrome. It's an interesting one. I think we all suffer from imposter syndrome. To me, I'm still the lab tech, at the bench, trying to learn as much as I can. There is no cure for imposter syndrome other than you just have to try to believe in yourself. I mean, I wish I had an answer to that, and it's something which I think women suffer from in particular. Men, I've heard men do as well, but I think it's definitely a curse that a woman suffers from.
I thought I'd just ask, just in case you didn't know.
I wish I did. If anyone does have please tell me.
So we've got a couple of questions now coming through the chat. So Lara says, really like your point about having a strong mentor. How would you recommend going about finding a strong mentor in the workplace where a scheme doesn't already exist? Is there an external scheme that you can recommend?
That's a good question. I don't know of any external scheme. I'm sure they're available, and that's something actually I'm going to look into after this. When I'm talking about mentor, I think even if it's somebody in your supervisor, your line manager. Now, if you're fortunate, like I have been, to have inspirational management in the business, then anyone can be a mentor for you. It's about looking at how they perform, asking their advice, asking asking them about their journey, listen to what they struggled with, and seeing if you can learn from that. So I think it doesn't necessarily have to be an official thing. It could just be, one of your colleagues or your line manager that could be inspirational for you in that way.
Thanks, Emma. And I should mention as well, we're going to email everybody who's kind of signed up to your talk. So we've got some various bits and pieces of information that we can give you all, but we can maybe signpost to some schemes that might be interesting, some resources. One of the big issues I think in Wales is loads of people offer loads of support, but it's really, really hard to kind of find out where to go. And one of the things that the Wales Women in STEM network tries to do is try and kind of bring all of that support thing together in one place. So we'll signpost to some of that for people here today who might find some of that information useful. But I think Emma's right from my perspective. Some of the best mentors I've had haven't ever known they've been my mentors. And it's the same for role models. I think, I've there are lots of people that have been role models to me and I've never told them, and I guess they'll never know. So Emma's advice is good, I think, on that. Another question coming on the chat from Amber, who asks what your proudest achievement is in your career so far.
That's a tough question. There's been quite a few moments. I think, to be honest, actually recently we've won some awards, and it's something that we had prior to 2016. We'd never entered awards. I think we thought, we're not going to win anything. We just it's always the big companies that win these things. And we actually got put forward for a number of awards. And I think going to the award ceremony for the ED Awards, for example, in London, where you're in a room with some of the biggest names in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, and they read out Genesis Biosciences as a winner for an innovation award. And for me, it really it just validated all of the hard work that the team and the sacrifices that we've made as well over the years. And that was, it was one night, but I still have the trophy in the trophy cabinet in the boardroom. And I think that was a really proud moment. And then from that, we found that we were winning a lot more awards, and that we were being recognised in lots of different award categories, different industries. And I think every time that's a real privilege and an honour. So yeah.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time and giving people the chance to get out for a little bit. So final question, that's a big one. What's the biggest lesson you've learned throughout your career?
The biggest lesson is you cannot always predict what's going to happen next. And, I think I had plans for this year. We had a strategic plan for our business this year that involved going into new markets, launching new product ranges, and then COVID came along. And what I learned was, no matter how much well you plan for things, which you have to do, the key is to be able to be agile, to be able to pivot, to change and adapt to changing conditions. And that's something that, my company here, Genesis, have done really well. In COVID, we've produced natural sanitizers that are helping in the effort. But it's being flexible, being agile, and needing to do that. I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned to be successful.
Thank you again, Emma, for your time today. I hope colleagues have got as much out of that as I have. This is our third conversation now, and every time I speak to you, there's something else that triggers in my mind that makes me think. So thank you ever so much for sharing your personal story and the story of Genesis Bioscience. It's really, really interesting, really inspirational. Thank you to everybody for taking the time this lunchtime to be with us again. As I mentioned, we'll be popping some stuff in an email to you all. One of the things I wanted to flag, and it follows on from something Emma said about the importance of recognition. I think a lot of the time we tend to think of recognition as more pay or a better job title, but actually recognition can come in all sorts of forms. And one of those is awards, whether you are brave enough to nominate yourself or your own organisation, or whether there is somebody, maybe somebody invisible, like an invisible mentor or role model, that you want to recognise and nominate for an award. So the Wales STEM Awards was the first time they ran last year and was successful, so they'll be running again this year. So we'll send you information about how you might nominate either yourselves or others. So that would be great. So I've said thank you to Emma, and I've thanked you for being here. I'd finally like to thank those faces that you won't have seen today that have been really helpful in making this happen behind the scenes. So Amber, Katrina, and her team. We've got another one of these series of talks next week, and we'll send you some more details about them. Another inspirational woman who we want to kind of put a spotlight on for Wales. But for today, thanks very much for being with us. Bye.